Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. Like many cities across this country, Manchester is dealing with issues of homelessness, addiction, mental health, and gun violence. And even though a lot of effort has been put into addressing those problems, they still persist. It's going to set up a very interesting race for mayor this fall. We don't know yet if Joyce Craig is running for re-election, but one Republican challenger is already in the race, and he joins us here in studio. Welcome, Jay Ruhe.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam, and welcome back to you as well.
Thanks so much. And so just tell us, Jay, a little bit about who you are and why you're running for mayor.
Sure. So thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So 13 years ago, I got my second DUI, and I knew that I had to chart a new course for my life. I knew that that meant that I had to remove alcohol from it, and I also knew that I wanted to get involved in public service to try and make sure that nobody else ever had to go through the things that I did. And that's exactly what I've done. I'm an infantry officer in the Army National Guard. I went to work for nonprofits where I worked on issues like addiction, mental health, homelessness. And now I walk down our city's streets or through our parks, and I see people who are struggling. And I know that there but for the grace of God go I, that very well could have been me. And that's exactly why I'm running, because I want to provide new vision, leadership, direction, and action plans to solve the challenges that we have. You know, I think it's unfortunate when we turn on WMUR or open the Union Leader, and you know, sometimes we see that Manchester makes headlines for the wrong reasons. But I love our city, and I'm so deeply proud of her. And we have a great deal of promise and potential that we're just not meeting right now. You know, I don't think there's a person you couldn't ask who wouldn't tell you that Manchester shouldn't be the envy of all of New England. But that kind of thing is not going to happen by accident. It's only going to happen when we elect the right leaders who are going to do things like protect our police, protect, you know, our first responders, our tax cap, our taxpayers here in the city, and drop some of the partisanship that we have seen at City Hall. And I think that's the personal, professional background that I bring to this race.
Specifically, what are you going to do differently from Mayor Craig?
Sure. So that's the softball question that every candidate likes to see, right? Like, gives you the perfect opportunity to take a whack at them. But I mean, I got to tell you, when I'm listening to people around the city, the last thing that they want to hear, and the thing that I find least productive or constructive, is when you're just attacking people for the sake of it. I'm sure there are going to be differences along the way, but the thing that I want to remain focused on is bringing people together to solve the challenges that we have. I don't think that you're providing leadership when all you're doing is being critical. It's not constructive, it's not productive, and it's not going to be what I want to do on this campaign. I want to bring people together to solve the challenges we have.
Okay, so what's your plan to address homelessness then?
Sure. So thank you. I think that there are three big things that we need to do on this. So accountability, compassion, and housing. So I love the housing first model that we've talked about and we've seen implemented nationwide. But I think the problem that we run into right now, as everybody knows, and I know WMUR has covered, we don't have a lot of housing in the state. We have a huge dearth of that, and it's going to take time for us to get to a point where we have enough housing to meet the needs. So what are we going to do in that interim period? You know, we have to start solving the problem right now and not wait for that housing stock to come. So on the accountability side, we need to enforce the regulations that we have on the books here in the city of Manchester, and we need to look at additional enforcement mechanisms if indeed they are warranted, and I want to have that conversation. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to criminalize homelessness. I don't want to criminalize addiction. I want to use that enforcement mechanism as a way to pull a lever to divert people into treatment. And when we talk about treatment, we talk about compassion and wraparound services, I think that we need to look at, you know, a couple big things on the addiction side. Specifically, if we're going to fix those underlying causes of homelessness, being addiction and mental health, I think there are three avenues where we can make a huge dent in this. One is in our schools. So finding those preventative services for kids who have high ACEs scores, adverse childhood experiences, to make sure that those kids who, statistically speaking, are more likely to develop an addiction later on in life are wrapped up in services. We got to go upstream. We got to look at what we're doing at the Hillsborough County Jail on Valley Street and making sure that when a person is transitioning out of jail, that they have, you know, the hospital, or that they have the healthcare needs that, you know, they may need in the future, that they have appointments set up. We need to make sure that if they're on MAT, that they have a script for that. We need to make sure if they're looking for jobs, we're helping them there. And then we have to go to hospitals. The greatest indication that somebody is going to have an overdose and die is that they've had a previous overdose. The greatest indication that somebody's going to come out and go back to the difficult circumstances they were in is the fact that they've been in there to begin with, just statistically speaking. So what are we doing in hospitals to make sure that that person coming out has what they need to be successful moving forward? And then addressing the instances that we have of homelessness here in the city already, more and more outreach. We have to involve our community partners in that as well. And then we can look at housing on the back end, the transitional, the affordable housing, and what we can do from a regulatory standpoint to address that.
This sounds expensive. You're a Republican. Don't you want to cut taxes and spending in the city?
I do, but so here's the classic like catch-22. People will say, you know, you have to choose between, that these things are mutually exclusive. You either have to put in good programs or you have to continue with the status quo as it is. What I would want to do, first day in office, right? You put everybody in a room, you lock the door, and no one leaves until you come out with a plan to address this. I don't think that it costs more money. When I used to work at a national nonprofit that helped people with addiction issues, we looked at innovative programs nationwide. Oftentimes, those things were run by community partners in conjunction with the city. These things don't always cost more money, and I don't think that you have to choose between implementing new programs that cost a lot of money and just making use of the community partners that you have here to better implement programs. And there are plenty of examples of that nationwide.
It's a very diverse city, many peoples, many viewpoints. What's your opinion of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Sure. So, I mean, I think that especially in a city like this where we have a great deal of diversity, we have to make sure that all voices are heard. And I think at a basic level, people need to be heard, their opinion needs to be validated. We don't have to agree on every topic, but I think that you have to welcome the conversation with individuals here in the city.
You've been endorsed by Governor Chris Sununu, but the city and the state don't always see eye to eye. So how do you navigate that relationship when you have to advocate for Manchester against the state of New Hampshire?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to find a time where we would be working in opposition to each other. I think what you need to be is an advocate for the city, but an advocate doesn't mean you're adversarial. I mean, what I would do is I would pick up a phone. I wouldn't be sending letters to the governor. I wouldn't be, you know, working with other communities to just send sternly worded memos to people. What I would want to do is I would want to pick up the phone and say, you know, Governor, whomever it is, whether it's Governor Sununu or somebody else, you know, I would want to say, hey, look, here are the challenges that we're facing here, and here are the things that I think that we can do to work together on this. But I don't think, you know, people look at politics, unfortunately, oftentimes too much like the West Wing or House of Cards. It doesn't need to be that difficult. Picking up the phone and having a conversation is far easier than trying to make things political all the time. And I think people are sick of it here in the city. I think we see it at the national level. People are just tired of it.
Will you be an advocate for commuter rail?
So for this, I can certainly see the benefits of having a commuter rail system. I can appreciate the arguments on both sides. I think one of my first priorities as mayor, or a priority of all time as mayor, would be to make sure that we're protecting our taxpayer. And I think the concern I would have with this is that every projection costs or shows that it's going to cost more money. You know, ridership projections being what they are, they tend to be lower than they have been. And these projects take an awful long time to actually implement and get completed. So my concern would be for the taxpayer that would burden them in the future years for maintenance costs, for you know, just setting it up and having the employees in place. And so I would be concerned about the taxpayer in this instance.
So a bit of a skeptic, but not necessarily a firm no yet?
No, I mean, I want to see what comes out of Concord. I know they've been debating this for quite some time. I mean, just like I would look at anything, if I were fortunate enough to become mayor, I would look at everything through the same lens, that I would want to protect the taxpayer here.
All right, Jay Rouet, candidate for mayor of Manchester, thanks for joining us on Close Up.
I appreciate it, Adam. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate the time.